elected in the 4th District because Ryan McDougall's held the seat for 12 years with no opponent. It's time to give voters a choice and a voice. Do we have any corporate CEOs in the room? Tobacco company lobbyists? Dominion Power executives? Nobody? That's why he's not here. He's not here because he's not interested in listening to you and answering your questions. But when the Dominion Power executives or the tobacco company lobbyists or someone else who pays a lot of money for his political campaigns wants to talk to him, his office door is open. I spent 20 years in the U.S. Army defending the Constitution. I've been serving my community, my country, for most of my young life, and now I want to give back to the community and give you folks a voice and a choice when you vote in November. In the Army, I learned a lot about health care, how important it is to well-being. I learned a lot about education because a soldier can't be successful on the battlefield without good training. I learned a lot about diversity because we didn't care where you came from or what you looked like or who you loved. If you were effective as a soldier, you were welcome and trained and cared for. Our country is in an interesting spot right now. And without going too far into one side or the other, it's time for us to step up and do something as citizens. And that means making sure we have fair redistricting, making sure that our votes are not suppressed, make it easy to vote, and making sure every one of you have a voice, whether or not you're giving to political campaigns. So I'm looking forward to your questions. Thanks to the organizers for inviting us here, and thanks to all of you for coming out tonight. Appreciate it. I'll be quick about this because it's really quite simple. We need to make sure that everyone who has a firearm is trained and trusted. They need basic safety training. We need good background checks to make sure they're trusted to safely manage the weapon and the use of those weapons. Okay? So we need strict background checks for every firearm purchase. My brother keeps secrets from me, and so not every family member is necessarily trustworthy if you're just handing them a gun. We need longer waiting periods, at least 14 days. We need limits on how many weapons you can purchase in a single 30-day period. We need to ban military-style weapons, and by that I don't mean a weapon that looks like an Army guy might use it. I mean weapons that have specific characteristics like maximum effective range, muzzle velocity, and power of the round. And we need to ban these long magazines. People don't need these military-style weapons for self-defense. Anyone who has a hunting rifle, a good shotgun, and a handgun for individual self-defense has all the weapons they need. And I'm telling you, the days of a citizen militia fighting off the standing army to protect liberty are over. It's the 21st century. We need gun regulation that addresses these things. Thank you. As I've traveled around, I've heard the same things that I'm sure are on your minds as well. I was interested in the boat tax thing. That's very interesting. I'm going to have to do some research on that. But it boils down to health care. No one should go broke because their child gets sick, or their husband or wife gets sick, or brother or sister gets sick. It's silly in a wealthy country like this for that to happen. Education. Our kids have to be prepared for 21st century colleges and careers. And we're not there, especially in places like this where there's no broadband. Gun violence, we just talked about that a little bit. But none of those are going to be addressed unless we fix money in politics. And I talked a little bit about this in my opening, but the bottom line is, in Virginia, a wealthy billionaire can give a politician as much money as they want to. There is no limit, as long as it's transparent. This creates the conditions for corruption, and we need to do something about it. My idea is a sales tax on politicians. If I pay a sales tax on bread, a loaf of bread, well, why shouldn't the big donor from Dominion have to pay a sales tax on a politician when they buy one? So 20% tax on any campaign contribution over $500. aggregate campaign contribution, and that will generate some revenue that we can use to build our education and healthcare. Thank you. Well, you know, I was kind of hoping I'd get a chance to answer the question that Ella just got, and I guess I can kind of tie the two together because at its core, this is about listening to constituents. Now, I have certain ideas about how the Commonwealth should approach these things. A lot of what Ella said, I strongly agree with. We need to build a Commonwealth and worry less about corporate wealth. Because if, like Ella said, if people are doing well, right? If people have money to spend, if they have health care, if they're not worried about losing their jobs, then the corporations will be fine because we'll be out there buying iPhones and toasters and going to restaurants and all these things, okay? But the question sounds like it's going more toward how would I make sure that I'm listening to you and not to myself. Well, I have ideas about how I think things ought to be, and that's why I'm running for this office, and I'm here telling you how I think about these things, hopefully so you'll think that you agree with me and you want to vote for me. But at its core, this is about holding events like this and listening to people like you tell me what you want state government to do. Now, we have an incumbent who has taken $200,000-ish from businesses since the start of this campaign. And I'm not talking about the person who's trying to run a thrift shop in downtown Deltaville. I'm talking about tobacco companies, pharmaceutical companies, Dominion. And these guys, I mean, that means he is listening to them and he doesn't care if you have health care or not unless it makes profit for somebody. I want to listen to you. I took $0 from businesses, zero, because I want to listen to you folks tell me what you think it ought to be done. I want your ideas on how to fix gun violence, right? So I would hold a lot of events like this, town halls, all over the district, and listen to you tell me what. One thing I'll promise, I'll make this promise right now, I will not compromise my own values and ethics. I will do what I think is the right thing to do. I will not compromise my own beliefs in order to get elected. Chris Peace got primaried. He's a Republican. He got primaried in the 97th district because he voted to expand Medicaid. If I think the right thing to do is to ban assault weapons and the constituency thinks that's the wrong thing to do, you have your chance to explain that to me at the next election. But I will, it's not about my agenda, it's about my values and my ethics. I served in the military for 20 years with a lot of very, very capable women. And I can't see any good reason why those people who defended the Constitution in the United States military shouldn't have a Constitution that protects their rights. So, yes, I would vote to support the Equal Rights Amendment. I think there's more important things to do, perhaps. I mean, healthcare, education, gun violence, as a practical matter, will affect your daily lives maybe a little more at the very ground level. But this is an important message to send to the rest of the country and the world that women are equal under the Constitution. And the only people who oppose the Equal Rights Amendment are people who look like me, who will lose power if it passes. White men, to a lesser extent other men, but it's white men that are opposing this. At a minimum, the General Assembly needs to stand up and vote for or against it instead of hiding this thing in committees without having to vote on it like they've been doing. And they go back and forth between the House and the Senate and they make a deal before it even starts, but where they're going to stop it. But no one has the moral courage to stand up and say, I'm in or I'm not in. And that's not the only issue we have that problem with. And I promise I will always let you know how I feel about each issue, that and others. And one of the big takeaways here is who's missing? Who's not sitting over here? Right? It's the Republicans who don't want to sit next to us and talk to you and listen to your questions. I appreciate the chance to come and listen to your Board of Supervisors and constitutional offices because I learned a lot about communities doing that. So thanks to all of you for coming out. and giving up your weekday evening to listen to a bunch of politicians jabber. It's important, right, especially the board of supervisors, because those guys deal with your daily lives every day, right? So thanks for coming out and being active on this. Appreciate it.